Please welcome to the stage Michelle Larson, restoring the reputation of the cuckoo.
All good, all good. All right, given that this whole talk is about birds, I'm gonna recommend not saying birds on every slide or we are never ending the night. Get it out of your system, come on, go ahead. Excellent. All right. I mean, they're birds. All right, so the history of humanity is full of associations between the word cuckoo and bad behavior and ridicule, which is, I believe, unfair to the cuckoo bird. I'm here to teach you about the complicated beauty of this marvelous creature and show why I feel its name shouldn't be thrown about as a thoughtless insult. Now, in order to do this, I'm gonna need a little bit of help in the form of a birdie ambassador. Everybody, meet Winston Churchbill of the British Trust for Ornithology. Winston is a common cuckoo, Cuculus canorus, and he's part of BTO's cuckoo tracking project. As most cuckoo lore derives from the common cuckoo, I'm gonna focus mostly on Winston and his buddies. And there are a few things that most people know about cuckoos to some degree. I'll get into a little bit more detail about all of them. First and foremost, there's the call. Secondly, the cuckoo clock. There's the word cuckoo itself, which is usually used in unflattering ways. And then there's brood parasitism, which is a mouthful, but it's basically where a host creature is manipulated into raising the young of another creature. The common cuckoo is a brood parasite. So fancy word for something you probably all have heard of. Put the birds down, Kurt. Shut up, Marisa. All right, for the actual audience participation part, to kick off the talk, I'm gonna need a little help from you all. So on the count of 3, I want you to tell me what a cuckoo, like Winston here, would sound like. 1, 2, 3. Kurt, put the phone down. I am taking it away at the end of the night if you don't stop. All right, so that well-known cuckoo call is pretty special. Only some species of cuckoos make it, including the common cuckoo like Winston, and it's only made by males. The call marks territory boundaries, it proclaims the availability to the ladies, and exactly. And the call also guides birds to suitable nesting grounds. Yes, maps, we'll go with that. The call also plays a special role in brood parasitism itself, as the call has been shown to lure away the host species, confusing them into distraction away from their own mating and nesting activity, which then allows the female cuckoo time to swoop in and deposit her own egg. So those 2 notes are doing a lot of heavy lifting. Now, if you're anything like me, the first time you associated that sound with a bird was in one of these guys. Oops, there we go. Did I go too far? Sorry. There we go. Sorry, Kurt. So the cuckoo clock, staple of tourists to the Black Forest region and an icon of good old German engineering. The cuckoo clock was popularized in the mid-1800s when it started to be mass-produced, but they're actually much older than that. An early written description of a cuckoo clock dates from the early 1600s. Old school varieties often feature an iron weight mechanism. That's the pine cones on chains that I always played with when I was a kid. Those keep the time ticking. And then there's an intricate pipe organ bellows contraption. It's really fancy, and that makes the signature cuckoo sound. Now, while these suckers are hard to fit in a suitcase, they are still a popular collectible. In fact, the largest US collection, with about 300 cuckoo clocks, is at the James J. Fiorentino Museum in Minneapolis, Minnesota, ranked number 15 on TripAdvisor's list of the top 10 best museums to visit when you're in Minneapolis. I'll let you play with those numbers for a sec. And math. All right, so the word cuckoo is associated with a few different ideas over the years. While I'm sure many of you are familiar with the phrase cloud cuckoo land from the recent book, or the Lego movie. I'm here to tell you the phrase is a little bit older than that, and it actually comes from a play called The Birds, written by Aristophanes in the 5th century BCE. Birds. In it, the word cuckoo represents the embodiment of foolishness, immaturity, and naivete. The idea being the repetitive call is reminiscent of a simpleton who repeats himself ad nauseum. More recently in America, in the 1850s-ish, there's a shift in meaning from harmless mental slowness to more fevered and dangerous insanity, because America's really good at stigmatizing mental illness. An example of this, a more harmless example of this, is Sonny the cuckoo from Cocoa Puffs, who looks nothing like a cuckoo, and I really wish I could go back in time to 1962 and have a word with their art department, but that is another talk entirely. Now, y'all are a mostly learned crowd, so I'm sure that most of you are aware the term cuckold or cuck queen, meaning a husband or a wife whose partner has cheated on them, comes from the word cuckoo. It actually comes from the French cuckoo, well, a word that sounds kind of like cuckoo, but anyway. It comes from the bird, specifically from its practice of brood parasitism. You've got uncertain parentage, paternal anxiety, the idea of marital infidelity. It's not hard to see where the idea comes from and how we got from point A to point B. The word's been around for a very long time. The earliest English language usage comes from a poem from the 12th century. And of course, we're still using this word. Of course, our more modern usage, mostly on the internet, and abbreviated to cuck, and most of the people who are using that, again, mostly on the internet, probably have no idea it even comes from a bird, but here we are. As for brood parasitism itself, it's not all cuckoos. There are about 150 species of cuckoo birds, and only about 50 of them engage in brood parasitism, including the common cuckoo like Wingston. You know what cuckoo birds don't is the greater roadrunner and the yellow-billed cuckoo. Yes, roadrunners are cuckoo birds. The more you know. Science. So we've got a greater roadrunner and a yellow-billed cuckoo, both found in the United States. Neither one of them engages in brood parasitism. And it's not all cuckoos, but it's not only cuckoos that engage in brood parasitism. The handsome fellow on the bottom there is a brown-headed cowbird. Cowbirds aren't just brood parasites, but they've also been witnessed engaging in mafia behavior, ransacking the nests, and bullying host birds who've rejected their eggs, basically intimidating them into more favorable cowbird behavior, which is kind of rude. Yeah. And brood parasitism doesn't only apply to birds. There's a minnow that parasitizes perch nests. There's butterflies that use chemical mimicry to parasitize ants. There are cuckoo bees, cuckoo wasps, cuckoo bumblebees, cuckoo beetles, cuckoo catfish. In fact, most species engaging in brood parasitism aren't even birds, and yet almost every flippin' one of them is named after this poor bird, which has got to be doing a number on its reputation and the way it imagines and perceives itself. Seriously, that's got to mess with you. But this is a talk about cuckoo, so I'll focus on that. The common cuckoo lays about 10 to 20 eggs a season, and only about half of them survive to hatching. Cuckoo eggs mimic their host eggs. So in this picture, you've got a whole bunch of reed warbler eggs. Reed warblers are a host for the cuckoo species, but in each of those 4 boxes is one cuckoo egg. If you look close, you can probably tell which one because they're not a perfect mimic. The cuckoo eggs are usually larger. And because they're not a perfect match, many fail to trick the host bird. Host birds will sometimes toss out those eggs, or they'll just abandon the nest entirely rather than, risk having to raise something that's not theirs. When there's success, cuckoo eggs grow larger and hatch sooner. And sometimes the babies will even toss the other eggs out of the nest before they have a chance to hatch. It's nature. They're not doing it to be jerks. Darwin attributed brood parasitism to instinct, postulating that natural selection may have played a role in establishing this behavior, resulting in greater reproductive success down the generations as the species evolved. It's not malevolence, it's wiring. Cuckoos are a complicated bird with complicated behaviors, which you can see and the complicated takes on cuckoos in literature and history. In ancient Greece, the cuckoo is associated with Hera. Zeus transformed into a cuckoo to win her. This is probably not an accident. Zeus was notoriously unfaithful. The Exeter book from the 10th century features a loving story of a cuckoo who appreciates its host mother who raised it, even at the expense of raising her own children, which may seem like a strange thing to appreciate, but the practice was actually fairly common among nursemaids who raised royal children, then considered a very noble act. In China, the cuckoo is associated with sorrow and depression. In India, the Chataka bird, a Jacobin cuckoo, is a symbol of purest love. In Japan, the cuckoo is a messenger who can pass between the earthly realm and the afterlife. And all over Europe, there are dozens of tales and aphorisms expressing the cuckoo's role in seasonal cycles and as a harbinger of spring and new growth, which isn't terribly surprising. Like their call, the cuckoo migration schedule is stable and predictable. One might say it runs like clockwork. I had to. Anyway, it was really predictable. Farmers would set the timing of planting their crops based on the cuckoo's cry, which is kind of impressive. But the cuckoo's steadfast internal clock may actually be contributing to its decline. While the majority of cuckoo species are listed as least concern by the IUCN, and there are 40 million common cuckoos, they're not going anywhere just yet. But according to the BTO research, that represents a population decline of about 36% over the last 30 years, which is a lot. Man-made climate change has increased the likelihood of drought and wildfires over part of their migration route. Host birds have shifted their migration and breeding seasons to accommodate these shifts in climate, but the cuckoo's a little bit slower to adapt, leaving them out of sync with their host species, which, as you can imagine, has some pretty dire reproductive consequences. And completely unrelated, some of the host species are also declining in numbers for other reasons. It's not only the common cuckoo who's suffering either. Maps. If anybody's ever seen a cuckoo locally, it's probably one of these guys, the local western yellow-billed cuckoo, which is listed as threatened due to habitat loss. Now, this map is a little bit hard to read because it's really small, but that big yellow blob that covers most of the western United States, that's the historical distribution of this bird, and the current population is in those tiny little orange blobs. That's it. That's all that there is left. The coral-billed ground cuckoo, vulnerable due to habitat loss and hunting. Bornean ground cuckoo, vulnerable due to deforestation to expand palm oil factories. The bay-breasted cuckoo, endangered with a population in the low hundreds due to habitat loss, conversion of forest to grazing land, and hunting with a possible side of pesticide abuse. Personally, I think that instead of applying human moral judgments to this bird, I think we should be having some sympathy for Wingston and his family. They're just trying to survive in an ecosystem we keep working as a species to destroy. But as depressing as the numbers are, there is hope. It's an awesome map, too. The researchers out there are hard at work studying these birds, their habits, their environments, and trying to lend their understandings to stabilizing cuckoo populations worldwide. I mentioned BTO's cuckoo tracking project earlier. Wingston is one of 12 birds whose migration paths are being tracked on a daily basis. And I cannot encourage you enough to go check out the site and watch their little journeys over the last 10 months, and some of them go back several years if they're birds that they've been reusing year over year. It's fascinating how much ground they can cover. And they write it up like little blog dramas. It's seriously riveting. Science. And the more you learn about the cuckoo, the more you learn to appreciate their role in our world, the delicate balance between all the world's species, and the more you understand that this negativity we associate with the word cuckoo is probably less a statement about the bird's wicked behavior and more a statement about humanity's drive to judge others. And with that, I'd like to raise a glass to Wingston and to all the common cuckoos and their cousins, giving us 40 million plus little reasons that life is worth living.
So the cuckoo is is a sign of spring in many areas, and you guys did such a good job with that sing-along that we are going to do something a little special. So Martin Strauss will be helping in leading us in a little bit of Ren Fair-style participatory singing.
All right, quick show of hands. Who here reads music? Awesome, you don't need me. Off you go. Just kidding. So what we're going to do, it's a round. It's going to be very simple. We're all going to sing this together. Then I'm going to split you down the middle. There's a nice little aisle. You're going to start, and you're going to follow, and it's going to sound great. Here's a note. It goes, sing cuckoo, sing cuckoo. I'm just going to keep going, and you can follow in. Sing cuckoo, sing cuckoo, sing cuckoo, sing cuckoo. All right. You got it. Stop. This half. This is so much easier than I thought it was going to be. And now, 1 and beautiful. Sing cuckoo, sing cuckoo, sing cuckoo, sing cuckoo, sing cuckoo, sing cuckoo, sing
I love a little audience participation. Thank you so much. Please give it up for our own diva, Marisa and Martin.